Sorry for the late night video, but I thought I'd get this in before I forgot. So I've got my first tank and wall structure built. And it's wider than the door. So we're gonna try to sneak it around, get it in, and get it around the tank. See how that goes. So apparently the top edge is a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch bigger than the bottom, or even more, because I've got the bottom in, except I had to put it in the other way because I've got a fitting. So she's in, I just gotta figure out how to get past that rail. So let's see what we can do. Alright. Let's see if she goes past that one. So now all I have left are these little guys. And then I've got to get that little sucker past my little bump out. See what happens. It is snug, dude. I could get a little more. That's for sure. God damn it. Oh my god. It was supposed to be 5 inches up. Sometimes you just have to get your butt kicked for a little while to figure out what to do. So originally I had this jumped and I didn't have it jumped high enough to go over here, and it's kind of a good thing I didn't, because getting past this first rail with this fitting isn't too horrible. As you get deeper, it doesn't have quite as much wiggle, so I just cut it out. I've got this guy tied in over here, so I got a leg supporting this upper wall piece, and that'll eventually tie into the bar anyway. And I'll bolt all this down, and yeah, it just slid right in. The bugger is, this is what I figured out, is the top edge is just a hair wider, like just a mohair than the bottom edge. And for some reason, she'll slide in this way. See, we stay up there? She'll slide down this way, but I can't slide the whole frame assembly over the tank from the bottom. So either the bottom's a mohair skinny on the framing or the tank's bigger, and I think it's the tank. But anyway, it's in. I've got my fitting in. I can actually spin it and not hit the floor, so I can get that in and have this bolted down. But that's pretty much where the tank's gonna sit. And that's like half the bedroom wall. Gets a little complicated because I have a lifting roof. But yeah, it's dark, it's late. First piece cut, welded, and set in place. The bar's next. Let's go, tube. Go! So it is now daytime, and yeah, you can see I got this sucker in, and it's actually bolted down. I tapped into the steel frame down below and put a bolt in there. I'll put a couple more in eventually, but another one over there, that'll get me in. And what I'm working on now is trying to get the platform for the bed set kind of in place, because the way this is going to work is a platform is going all the way back to the slide out. It's going to be adhered to the slide out with a hinge, and then it'll actually track over this as it goes into this slide out. And that's what we're working on next. So we've got a little addition here. Back up. I've got a little piece that's going to get bolted on. That's eventually, this frame is going to be all part of the tank system. And hopefully I can get it in and out with this piece. I may bolt this piece to that piece just for fear of it not coming in the door. Anyway, so here's my quandary is the tanks, 2 of them, 25 gallons a piece, so 50 gallons, vertical instead of horizontal, which poses a bit of a leverage problem when they're full. And my fear is if I'm rocking the truck and they're, say, 7/8, 3/4 full, and I get enough water sloshing around, that is a lot of force. And my fear is this little bar area is gonna just, the welds will just break on me. So I'm using 1 inch for all this framework, and it seems to be holding up great. And I don't think I'm gonna have any problems with it. However, as big as that and as heavy as that is, that's 400 pounds of water that's gonna be sitting on that base spread across the frame, and obviously 400 pounds sloshing back and forth. So what I think I'm going to do is increase the size of the base and then tie in the corners with another large piece of aluminum square stock. So let's go look at that. All right. So these, again, the corner braces are amazing. They're just, it's so nice. Anyway, I digress. That's 2 inch. Let's see if I've got a little baby chunk of 1 inch someplace. I do. That's 1 inch, obviously half as big, but it just seems monstrous compared to the 1 inch. So I think what I'm gonna do is, this is my lower base that'll get bolted to the floor. And then what I'm gonna do is, the bar is 42 inches high, and I haven't cut them yet, but basically I'm gonna cut into, notch out my 2 inch corner once I get this weld together, weld all the 2 inch, grind it down, get it nice, and then cut out the 2 inch all the way down and out for the 1.5 inches, and then the 1.5 inches will be my support that goes up for the bar, and I'll actually, I think, cut another one in here for the other side of the bar, and that way, instead of, normally what I do is just set it on like this and just weld this guy and weld this guy and maybe weld this outside and probably be okay. But with as much force I think those tanks are going to have, I'd feel more comfortable getting a whole stick basically down, and I've got multiple weld points for the pivot. I've got one down here and one up here that'll kind of lock that into place. So that's the plan. The bar is the next project, and this should be fun. This is what it takes to try to get it square. It's a pain. she's good though. All right, next side. All right, so quick update. This little guy has come in very handy for stuff like this. So basically what I did is I notched out the spot for the 1.5 inches. That 1.5 inches goes all the way down. Same with the corners. Notched out the corner. And I'm gonna weld everything in place, and that's what will give me my strength, is coming all the way down to here. This has something to grab against instead of just this little weld if it was sitting on top here. So I've got them all pretty close as far as square and straight. I'm gonna tack them and then pull the tops in, and then tack the tops, because I've got legs across the top obviously for the bar, and then square everything up once it's tacked in, and then weld it in. So far I'm pretty happy with the fit, because those are pretty tight. I'm not going to blow through those seams with the weld. Next! The water tank holding unit / bar area is in. And it is a beefy bugger, man. So I've used almost every bit of aluminum I have left, with the exception of some 2-inch that I've got to use for my slide outs, and some 1.25 inches that I'm using to trim out the inside of the windows. I have no 1 inch left, no 1.5 inches left, and I took all they had, and I'm at least done with the bar. So I've got 1 inch up here for stops for the tanks. So basically the tanks will sit inside here, and they are snug. I've actually got to grind down this little guy right here because it rubs on this rail as it goes in and comes out. And I've also got to get holes punched and soldered in the tanks for fittings. But so the tanks sit in the middle, and there's about a 3 or 4 inch gap between the two tanks for the fittings. And I've got this thing tapped and bolted to the floor. And you can see I had a bunch of washers in there because the only bolts that I had were about a 1/2 inch too long. And I figured it was easier doing that than, I guess, hunting down bolts, since it is a Sunday. But yeah, I've got a step built in. The heater's gonna go obviously in this little area down here. And what'll end up happening is I'll have a chase that kind of curves up through here and heats the kitchen. And then the tanks sit up on this, and I obviously have this jumped. I had to get this for a fitting because I've got a fitting going down here and plumbing going underneath, I think. Yes, I do. But yeah, it's bolted in. My other water tank is bolted in. I've got this thing screwed together, and it is, like, I am jumping on this thing, and the whole rig is moving. Ain't moving. So there is the bedroom and the start of the kitchen, and I'm out of aluminum. So I think I'm gonna start framing out my windows. I've basically got a piece of 1.25 inches that butts up against this to let the finish trim or finish siding come up to this edge, and then the interior frame of the window mounts on that. So yeah. Pretty happy with it. Like I said, it is stout. I built this thing because there's a lot of weight moving around in those water tanks, and I don't think that's going to be an issue with the way this thing's set up. It's obviously tied. Everything's tied together, so even this little wall is just stout. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've got to put a hinge on the back of the bed. I've got to glue down my wear pads, so when the slide out comes in and goes out, it's not aluminum rubbing on aluminum. But yeah, there it sits, peeps. I have no idea what's next. Let's see what we can do next. Windows, aha! Windows.